What up?
What that?
Hmm?
I said, what up?
Oh yeah, it peeled you out on that color. On it.
I'm pale now.
Yeah. It was look orange-ish. I don't know. It look Asian.
Do I look Asian?
Yep. Welcome back, D.
I don't know. I'm looking at myself on the other screen and I don't think I look Asian, Tamika.
Mm. What's going on,
I'm
smart
looking
money
at
chick?
myself on the other screen.
Huh?
I said, I'm looking at myself on another screen and I don't look Asian.
You look like Dora the Explorer's teacher.
Yo vivo en la escuela.
Nacho cheese chicken,
¿Vives
please.
en la escuela?
Nacho cheese chicken, please.
You know, I've been having fun with my Spanish.
Nacho cheese chicken, please. Did you enjoy the last show? I saw
I
you in the
would.
back. I'm like, ooh, ooh,
You know, I always have a good time on the first show, especially in the background, because I can be authentically myself in the background because I'm not even dressed yet. So it's always funny because sometimes I'm in real time as well, and so we keep it as authentic as possible. And it was a hoot because on the viewer side, they're like, "Uh-oh, Petty T didn't started earlier today," and it's really not a petty moment. It's really like in honest communication of your thoughts. Like you are so passionate about this platform and um I guess black people getting ahead and staying ahead and realizing where we're at in a very honest and open dialogue backed by the stats. Like everything that's going on in the world and even amongst ourselves, and I said it in the chat, is just like, for me, I feel like there's so many chiefs and not enough Indians, in this whole ecosystem of things, right? and
mm,
and in that quest for autonomy, we lose the big picture of it really taking a village in order to make these things come into fruition.
mm,
You know what I'm saying? Like, and we've seen it a lot. We discuss things and we discuss topics, and we don't want people to go ahead and start it. But a lot of people will start things that are similar to women in Linux. And instead of building and helping build and expand that women in Linux community, they will go off and do spin-offs of their own thing and then critique why we don't have those things, and that is going to set them apart from what we are doing. When we keep having a really, like, we've been transparent all along, is like, we are two women working in tech, and this is not our only gig, and we are learning and growing as well. And so when we come to the church on Saturdays, this is not only things that we research, but we are living. You know what I'm saying? Like, we are living, we are dating, we are sisters and daughters and aunts, and we out here in the world doing the same thing. We're really trying to practice what we preach, and sometimes there's a give and take in that. And it's masked as a petty tea moment, but it's really not petty. It's the facts.
mm,
It is the facts. There's so much time wasted on the nuances of things. You know what I'm saying?
mm.
Like, what coulda, shoulda, how they could have framed it. That lady said what she said. We all knew what context that she said it, and that's her right. That's her preference. If that's what she want to do, that's what she want to do. To each its own. But at the end of the day, we want to invite a conversation, and not only a conversation, but a movement of forward thinkers that are here to get tech skills, of course, but use those tech skills to build generational wealth. And what does that look like?
Yeah,
And
because
how are
first,
we,
yeah,
and go ahead.
because first it started with Steve Harvey and what Steve Harvey said, and of course, Marjorie's ex-husband is talking, and now of course Steve Harvey got called a simp, um, and and of course Ilana got called a mammy, and basically the younger generation is like put a muzzle on the older generation, like put a muzzle on them. Um,
But why? But why? But and this is what I don't understand. It is just, it's like everything that you ingest, you take what's for you and keep it moving. That man has the right to love his wife at his age, however he sees fit. He has been a young man and has lived his life experience, and now he's an older man. And I'm pretty sure over his lifespan, Marjorie is not his first wife. He
no,
has lived an
the third,
experience
I
that
think.
brought him to who he is and why he said what he said to that. And I
Well,
guess, go
yeah,
ahead.
they're going by the reputation of him and cheating and where she comes from and so forth and so on. Like she's used to be a drug dealer's girlfriend and the whole nine and what that looks like and just on and on. And so then in my head I was like, okay, well, if that's the judge and jury that we're gonna stand by, then what do we do with all the men that are incarcerated and they get out?
But what do we do with ourselves? You know what I'm like?
Well, I mean,
We
I get
people
that,
act like we aren't human and that we don't evolve, and who we were in our 20s or is not who we are in our
and
30s,
and
our
and,
40s,
and what
and our
people
50s.
and yeah, and what people are saying, we don't care. What you did in your 20s is what is who you are now, and because
Well,
your
I mean,
past.
and for me, for that conversation, I cannot indulge because
Yeah,
based on my past, it's like you won't listen to nothing I say. You won't take those things as life experience and letting me go through that lesson for you and speak from my experience. Because even
and
now, when we pull up stuff, we say, we're not financial advisors. We give the disclaimers, but people still listen and they take what they need from them and keep it pushing. Like
yeah,
he without seeing cast the first stone. Like it ain't enough grace out here in the world. Like they worried about the two. Anyway, that,
what's going on, Keep It Ticket? What's going on, Elise? What's going on, Smart Money Chick? And the reason why was talking about image and branding this morning is because the image doesn't look good for us in the totality, men, women, black, minority, whatever the case you want to look, how you want to slice it up, African American, American, whatever you want, black, whatever, how you want to, whatever you want to call it. And it doesn't look good in the sense of it to me. Just, I mean, I've been all through the streets, all through Instagram, YouTube, all of them. I went through all of them on purpose, and all I see is a bunch of people sitting on the sideline complaining. And then on the other side of the house, I see a bunch of people making moves and making money while we over here complaining. While we over here complaining about whatever it is, whatever's the flavor of the day. And then on the other side of the house, I see, well, on the same side, I see us being stagnant. I feel like I am stagnant, right? I feel like I am stagnant. If you imagine that, right? And I also feel like um, what I am seeing is even worse than what I feel that I am, if that makes sense. And so when I'm looking out, I'm looking for, well, okay, well, who has a solution? No, don't have no solution. Okay, well, what's the premise? Okay, solution? No. Well, part of that could be a solution. Part of that is not a solution. I'm looking for solutions that make sense. There's something easy for people to implement, easy to follow, and so forth. And it comes back to the same thing for me. Keep your head down. Go get your skill sets up. Get into different rooms. Make your money. Bring other people with you. Keep pushing. That's what I see. Um, and what I've also seen is make sure that once you get in the rooms, you analyze the rooms, you pull in more people with you, but everybody ain't gonna go. And so you got to be strategic in who you take with you, and strategic in who you befriend in those circles too. And how do you analyze what that looks like? I think you have to trust your judgment at some point, because everybody ain't good. Everybody ain't good to befriend. They just, and some people just really are out for themselves. No matter, you're good for in that moment, and after that, I can't use you no more. It's been nice. It's been real. Thank you for the leverage up, and I'm out. I'm on to the next one. That's my thought process. And shout out to Tashika for becoming a new member. Looked like she was on a new member on the last show, maybe this show. I'm not sure. But shout out to Tashika for becoming a new member. That's my thought process.
Yeah. I mean, it is a lot of, you know, how I feel like unpacking to that. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a double-edged sword. Like you damned if you do, you damned if you don't. Um, the reason why, you know, women in Linux was created was, you know, those exact same things that you think about, you know, and what you have seen out in the world. So I feel like every day we are performing a little bit more of that mission. And in the background, we are working our damnedest to go ahead and fulfill that mission every day.
Yeah. Yeah, people
Um,
don't understand how much go on in the background. I'm behind on some stuff. I
I'm
have
exhausted.
I haven't
I'm so
created my
exhausted.
videos. I know people want the stuff that we do on a weekly basis, but I'm in meetings at
All
least three or
day,
four all day.
all day,
Um,
all
and
day,
from nine.
all day meetings. I'm not only am I in meetings, I'm working in those meetings and I'm trying to eat in those meetings. And then when I go down to rest, I really can't even rest. And I think me spending that week in Denver, I knew it was going to throw me off, but those 2 hours really, really make a difference.
Wow.
And I mean, people don't know literally I was up and then I closed my eyes. I got a new sleep mask, and you were like, where are you at? And I'm just like, no sense of time or space. Uh, so that lends me to say that building a team is the hardest thing. Building a team, getting like-minded people, um, is rough. And this is something that I've known in business for a very long time. But you know, and I guess that's that big part of, you know, the culture. Because at the end of the day, I think we are very easygoing people. We're not micromanagey in that sense, where it's just like we have so much autonomy in our space, is that we give people the freedom to be what they're going to be and to show up. And you get an A until you prove wrong. So I'm exhausted. I'm not gonna lie. And then there's life things happen. You know, we come on here and we really put on like a great front of perseverance, but you're going through things, you know, with your mom for the past couple of years. I'm going through things. I mean, life is happening and we still have to, you know, put our shoes on one shoe at a time and show up for
Hmm.
um for ourselves, because us showing up to women in Linux is a commitment we made to ourselves that we are in this and we are in this together and we are going to move forward. And me as your friend, I know that nobody can be as hard on you as you are to yourself. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? And it's tough because we're at times you can be so focused on what you haven't done because you want to provide so much more, is that we forget what we are doing on a daily
I
basis,
don't
what we are
forget.
providing.
I
Well, I
don't
mean,
forget.
I'm just saying in general. I'm not saying you, but I'm just saying in general. Like, you be in it so much, you just like, oh, what I haven't done, but that
Mm-hmm.
showing up every
I mean,
Wednesday,
yeah,
showing up
we
means
we
showing
talked
up.
about it this week. Like for me, I felt like a failure. Um, you know, I felt. Let me say it this way: I felt like a failure, and I didn't feel like a failure. Right? It was a 50-50 thing. So I went and calculated just from 2006 to now to now on my W-2 side, how much money I earned on my W-2 side. I just wanted to see what it was, right? And then I was like, damn, I could have did better, right? And then you look back at the opportunities where you had a chance to do better, or you could have you had a chance to skill up, but you didn't. But you didn't know, right? You just didn't know. You was just working, right? You just working. So that's why I say, um, with the information that I'm giving you all, or life learned experiences that'll cut you 10 years to become that millionaire, right? I'm trying to take it 10 years, right? They say 32 years to become is the average to become a millionaire. That's what they say, 32 years. But I'm just trying to show you just clearly on the W-2 side, just straight work ethic, you could make a gross of 1 million to 2 million. And then in that million that you gross, say you went for the 200,000, in that million that you gross over those 10 years, that million and to actually work for you, so that that million, instead of it being a million, that at the end of that 10 years it is doubled into 2 million. Oh, you appreciate it. We appreciate you all for showing up. You didn't have to come here on Saturdays.
Every day. You definitely don't have
You
to
don't
show
have to
up.
come here on Saturdays.
Yeah, but and then it gets to, I just want to go, and that's the social worker in me wanting to go a little deeper. Like,
Mm,
at the end of the day, each generation is supposed to be better in some aspects, and I
mm,
think they're saying Z's are kind of regressing in that aspect. But I just look over my life, and it's it's it could be so much worse. You know what I'm saying? Like, it could be
mm,
so much worse where I'm at today, um versus what it could have been a totally different situation. And in my cousin chat, we talk about it. There's, of course, there's things that you want to do and wish you could and woulda, coulda, shoulda, woulda, but um I don't want to live in that space because I'm learning. This is
mm,
life, and I'm on this journey as well. And I'm not ever going to profess to know it all. Or, of course, if I was exposed to certain things or based on the situations um, at that time, I made the best decision for that time
mm,
for myself. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, we still could be married. We still could be in a whole bunch of situations. Like, looking at the statistics that you pull up, it's like you beat the odds, and then you're wrapped into some stuff. But at the same time, it's just like, whew, I dodged that bullet. You know what I'm saying? Like,
mm.
who would dodge that bullet?
Yep.
whatever it
But
is. Like
but
people, go ahead.
and the other part of this is also too, like, what I try to make sure that I bring is the fact of, um when I started, it was in a silo, right? So
Hmm.
there was, it was really not any, it was nobody to talk to. But now, I mean, we had, thank God for really for social media and the internet, really, if we be truth be told, for where it was then until now. You actually can actually seek out people, the conferences, the ability to see other people. Keep it techie. You asked, was I going to the conference? I responded to your text. Yep, I'll be there for the Red Hat conference. In fact, I got some stuff up that we're gonna talk about today with Red Hat. But then the flip side of that is so vast. It is it's so vast of knowledge and information out there. It can be very hard for somebody to navigate and work through. But I've done so much of the navigation and so much of the work that I want people to be able to see what that is. Like, I'll sift through it and here you go. But if you want to go down that road, this is my best suggestion. But at the same token, you got to go down that road so you can see it for yourself, right? And you're right, keep it techie. You said we all go through it. You almost quit YouTube this week because you was feeling as though it's a distraction, slowing my progression with my career, and it is. It is a it is. It is a distraction. So the easiest way to honestly to tell you how to not make YouTube be your distraction as you create the content is create content on what you study. That is the easiest
Just eat it.
easy that is the easiest way to create the content on what you study. If you do an interview, write some notes down, talk about the interview. If you have a one-on-one session and you got a life lesson out of that one-on-one session without disclosing the person, make that content, right? Um, Fortunately for me, making content is easy for me because I've had years of practice. Everything that I share with you all, I used to share it with Dion every single day, and she'd be like, "Girl, what am I gonna do with all this?" All right, it's so
But also you are a communicator. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like a lot of people, like for you, like you always like, oh, you can go do the show by yourself. And I'm like, no, we're not gonna have any show. Like I am not I communicate, but I am not a natural communicator in the fact where I can just sit and look in this camera and talk to the people like they're just sitting across from me. You have a
I
natural
don't know. Do I
ability
do
to
that
do that.
like somebody sitting across from me?
Yeah, but also you are looking at me on the other
Mm-hmm.
end. You know what I'm saying? Like you are, and I forget that at times because even when people, we don't have the green room, but you are looking at me.
Mm-hmm.
So you speak to people like you are speaking to me because I'm at the bottom of the screen, and
Mm-hmm.
you are looking um
Well,
at me.
I be looking at you because you be acting silly, but I
And not
also
only that, I'm responding in real time and I'm
right.
cracking up because it's not, I'm not on screen. And so
Mm-hmm.
we have that banter, and that's the energy that we have just based on us being around each other for so long. And when you're talking to the people, you're looking at me, you're like, what do you think, D? And I have to remember, and I'm giving you a response non-verbally because you're looking at my actions, but then I have to type something for the people so they can see my response, because I will be responding and we'll be having an inside joke. You know what I'm saying? But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, I just want everybody to look over your life. You know what I'm saying? Look over your life and 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 look and reflect on what it is and where you're going, right? Because I
Mhm.
in my tech journey, in my life journey, I knew I wanted to be in real estate. I knew I wanted to do business. I wanted to go to school in Atlanta. I wanted to do something different than what I saw. But it's just like, where do you go from that? And I would like people, they don't have to give their exact age. If they're comfortable with it, absolutely. But
Oh, just
give
put
your
down.
age,
Just put
get your
down.
age range
No, you can put
or
down
your
Gen Z,
generation.
Gen Z,
Well,
or
no,
Gen
because
Y.
it's so big. Like the generation gap. Like for me, it's easier to just look at an age group, like 45 to 50 or 35 to 45. Because for us, I guess are we older Z, older
I'm a Gen
X's,
Z. I'm a
younger,
Gen Z.
younger
I'm a Gen Z. I'm 25.
Gen Z.
I'm
And
25.
okay. You are
I am.
25. You
I
actually
am. I'm
all of
25.
25. You are,
I'm
but that
25.
me is 60. So
I'm 25.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah. This
Um
is nothing to get. It. I am. It's nothing to get. I am.
okay.
Okay. Get
Okay.
it. Get it. Get it together.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You are.
I said what I said.
And you said it. Yeah.
25.
So here our experience are vastly different. Are vastly different given your age, um, where you grew up, who
That's
you
right,
grew up
Heather.
with.
That's right. Get it right. Jerry after millennial.
Hey
Sharon
Sharon,
Middleton. Thank you for coming. A new member.
congratulations.
Thank you.
All of that is different. Me and you were latchkey kids. Luckily, your grandmother was
I'm
stationary.
25. You were a latchkey kid.
I was a latchkey kid.
Yes.
I was a
Let's
latchkey
get this
kid,
together.
and
I need you to
what's
get
so
it together
crazy
today. You
about
seem a
being a
little off.
latchkey kid is that to this day, I need to know where my keys are at. Like I don't lose nothing because I don't want to be SOL. In that independence in me, it is a gift and it is a curse. Um,
Tell me more about being a latchkey kid. This is such a foreign concept for me. What do you do as a latchkey kid? Why are you latchkey? What is the latchkey for?
because you have to latchkey means that you need your own key to let yourself in the house because when you get there, nobody's there to open the door.
Mm.
Like you have a set of responsibilities for
Sounds dangerous.
yourself and guidelines, and that you need to get it done.
It sounds
And
like
how you
child
do it.
neglect. It sounds like child
You know
neglect.
what? Now it will be considered child neglect. Like a lot of people would not let their children catch public transportation at 6 years old by
Oh,
themselves. Like
that's neglectful.
that is something that I had to do. My
Mm.
grandmother took me on the public transportation, and in San Francisco, it's called the Muni. And my school was a mile, and we sat at the bus stop, and she rode with me one time and was like, "You got it," and I was like, "Yeah, I guess." And so that independence was instilled in me at a very young age. And you had that key around your neck in your clothes, and that's where it needs to stay. Nobody's going to touch that key. You are the protector of the key because that is the castle.
Mm, mm,
And
mm.
if you have siblings, younger siblings, you're an only child. If you had younger siblings and you had to be responsible for them, whether it was taking them to school or, picking them up or lunch, or you guys walk together. Fortunately for me, I had a cousin and he was two
Or did
years
you
younger
cook your
than I.
own food too?
Oh, what? I can fry bologna sandwiches like a mug. With my little
Heather
Wonder
was
Bread.
like being on the public bus at 6 o'clock is wild. Ain't it wild though, Heather? It's wild.
A
Like
public
who
bus,
doing that?
Heather. What? How old are you in the first grade? 6, 7, right? In the first grade, I was in the first grade. Yeah,
No.
I mean that's our transportation. We didn't have the cheese like in Atlanta. I was like, they get picked up. I didn't get picked up for school. I didn't catch a school bus. Like, a fast pass.
Is this why you're a thug now?
Am I a thug? Do you
That's
consider
what
me
you
a thug?
say. That's what you
Do
say.
you
You say
consider
I'm a
me a
thug.
thug?
Yeah, that's what you say.
Do
You're
you
a thug.
consider me a thug? Don't play with me. You just don't play with me. I do not appreciate when people try to play in my face. It
Okay,
irks my soul.
it's thug coming
Yeah,
out
but
now.
I can fry me a bologna sandwich, scramble me an egg,
Smart
make
Money
some
Chick
egg
said
salad.
she was playing family dinner by 8th grade.
Oh, what? Luckily, I have my great grandmother. So my great grandmother, when she was still alive, she was a seamstress, and she taught me how to sew. And I went to Catholic school and washed my uniform, blouse, and if I spend the night over there, and she would cook things from scratch, and it just be me and her in the kitchen, just cooking up stuff. But absolutely, I was a fixture in the kitchen growing up because my grandmother was a transplant from Texas to California. So her and her friend group, they were always together baking and cooking and doing all that stuff. And so I was like the prep cook at a very, very young age. Like, I'm gonna
Syrup and
cut up
ketchup sandwiches.
celery. Hmm?
Syrup
Oh
and
no,
ketchup.
that's not my life. I used to tell my mother that about my mother said some things about my stepfather. She was like, he had butter and sugar sandwiches. I was like, that's not my life. I can't relate. Like,
I had a banana sandwich
mm,
with
no.
2 pieces of bread, mayonnaise, cut up some bananas.
No.
Delicious.
No.
I
And then
had
my dad's mom, she worked at night and she was a nurse. She worked at night. So if we went over to her house after school, she was literally serving us dinner by 5 o'clock so she can go to work. So we would sit around the table, me and my cousins, and eat before she went to work. She fed us. So I don't know that struggle. I don't know a syrup sandwich. Like, now, if that piece of bread was dipped in some eggs with some syrup, I'm all for a good French toast. But
no, yeah,
yeah.
no. My grandmama cooked everything, so you know, grandmother cook at 4 o'clock in the morning. You know, breakfast is at 5, so
Yep.
5 a.m. is
Well,
breakfast.
I would be late to school every morning when my grandmother was alive because she had me up at 4 in the morning with her sipping coffee. And she didn't have no sense of time or anything. I would be late every day, just stroke. Luckily, my school was like 4 blocks from her house, and I would just go walk down the street and I'm just late, sipping
No,
coffee out of a saucer with my great
you
grandmother.
too early, too young to be drinking coffee.
But that's what I would just sit up there with my granny, and that's what we would do.
You know,
That's what we
no
would
and
do.
no.
But
So
yeah, you got to think about that. Like, those things matter. Those, like, having no computer in your house, it makes a difference. Having parents that were in social sciences, it matters. Like, being exposed to different things, it matters. So never think that you are too late. Just pick up wherever you are at now. Just start something. Just
okay, I'm gonna play.
start something somewhere.
I'm gonna play. I'm gonna play Ilana and you, Ebony. Would you date a guy without a GED?
No. And what did he okay, so let me
That's
put this. So
look,
the
look, and
Dion
that's
kicked
your
in.
problem. And that's your
No,
problem.
the Dion kicked in because if you can graduate from high school and not have a GED, you can graduate from college and not have a GED. Like, I got a diploma and I don't have a GED. Like,
No, I'm just saying,
high
would you date
school
a
is
guy
like,
would you date a guy that has not graduated from high school?
including the GED.
That he don't have no GED, no high school diploma, no nothing. He didn't graduate
Okay,
from
so
high
what's
school.
his profession? What is he doing? Because I know some people that don't have college education
It's just the
and
one
they are
question.
lifelong learners. Because the
No,
C plus students,
is
they're
the
mostly
question.
millionaires. It's a go getter
Ma'am,
attitude. So
ma'am, 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 ma'am.
I can only be the best Dion I can be. I can only be the best Dion I can be. That's it. And just I can't be Ebony. I can't be some. I can only be the best Dion I can be. Dion got questions. Dion got a social work degree. I'm an active listener. I got questions.
Afro,
I need
like
to know the background.
how cute is the non-GED?
What is he doing now?
Smart money chick, like not this again, Dion.
When is did he? I mean, hey, because after a certain age, do you really need it? Like, but for your transcripts, like he on online. What are you doing? I don't know. I have questions. Again, education was important in my house. I mean, high school was, and this is high school is the basics.
Yeah. Education was good. Let's say Afro, you looking for a trophy wife status? So Afro, she just need to be cute. You don't care about the GED as long as she cute. I'm gonna be quiet on that one.
Soon as something medical happen and you got to depend on her, and she gonna be looking at you, looking at her, being extra cute. She can't do nothing. Sugar turn this shit. Oops, excuse my French, but she gonna have to have some sense, a little bit.
Smart money chick, don't say not this again.
But you know what? I was watching, and I don't know if you watch this. What is that? Love and Marriage Huntsville. I was watching the other day, and Marceau, the one that's really like the traditional husband, that's like, I want my wife at home cooking and cleaning and watching these kids. A friend of his gave him like a revelation. And most men, they are, provision and protectors, right? And in providing and protecting their wives in the home, which I totally understand. You know what I'm saying? I totally get that aspect. But he said, in the house, his friend said, in the house that works. He said, but my dad always told me that we are raising wolves and not sheep. In the real world, you want your wife to be a wolf, because at the end of the day, it's a totally different situation out here in the world. And if anything happens to you as a man, everything that you built, can your wife sustain that? And right. I think that gets missed in a lot of conversations in providing that provision. Provision also is making sure that your household has the same knowledge, the same know-how, the same grit in order to keep the things, the legacy that you're building alive. And I think that's what's missed in the bigger aspect of the conversation. How you built all this stuff and you working and you're missing your kids growing up and all that stuff, and they get this money and they don't appreciate it. They don't know how to keep it. And then in one generation, everything that you worked so hard for is gone.
Well, that comes with financial literacy. It also comes with being transparent on how it's built too, right?
And also having people show up and trusting that they can do that.
Yep, there's a lot of factors that go into that. But again, we're here for How We Linux.
But this is How We Linux. This is the life part. This is how we Linux.
This is how we do life.
This is how we do life. This is how we life. These are the conversations that we have. And these are conversations we have in the meetup as well, is what do we need? And you talked about it the last show. What is the foundation that you need in order to keep moving, to keep going forward? If we sat on here and talked about a whole bunch of nothing, we'll have a whole bunch of viewers. Sitting here talking about nothing, and that's really wasting your time. Keep it techie. If you're out there talking about nothing, at least you are having a conversation about your field and what you're in and growing and teaching the people. You're not up there talking about a whole bunch of fluff and wish me sandwiches. So
speaking of keep it techie, the Red Hat conference is coming up. We will be at the Red Hat conference. I don't know, D, are you going?
I have no idea.
Okay. So Red Hat Summit is coming up 23rd or something like that. 23rd through the 25th. Don't get me the line.
Yeah, I have so much. I'm supposed to be studying my Security Plus. Uh, there's so much stuff going on.
23rd through the 25th in Boston. So I'm gonna try to get there a couple of days early because I want to go to the Open Infrastructure Conference. There's some sub conferences within those conferences. The Open Infrastructure Conference um is the OpenStack, OpenShift situation. That is gonna be a sub conference within. So the Open Infrastructure Summit. They got it separate out now. It's gonna be in Vancouver in June. Got to make sure we get there. But they'll probably have an open infrastructure, open something day. They usually have a day where they do something with OpenShift and OpenStack. They usually do it they'll do a day of it. So that still may be there. I got to double check the itinerary and the classes and stuff. Says you can build the biggest empire if your offspring is not interested in that progression, then you're going to spend a lot of money in creating systems and trusting people to buy into the vision. Correct. So let's get into it. This is an overview from Red Hat's perspective of DevSec Ops. I have an interview that we're going to review. I have some I have some books that I want people to look at. We're going to go through those books as well too. We're going to talk about safe. We're going to talk about safe and DevOps. We're going to talk about Kubernetes and security. We're going to talk about AI and DevOps and Linux and edge computing and IoT and blockchain. Got a lot of topics to cover. Um, and let's get busy on those topics now. Okay, DevSecOps stands for Development, Security, and Operations. It's an approach to culture, automation, platform design, and integrate security as shared responsibility throughout the entire IT cycle. So DevSecOps versus DevOps. Again, coming together, the devs were on one side, the ops were on one side, and then really it's more or less about not necessarily a position title name, which marketers have made it a position and a title name, really. It was more about a philosophy than anything, right? So DevOps isn't just about development and operations. If you want to take full advantage of agility, responsiveness of DevOps approach, IT security must also play an integrated role in the full cycle of your apps. Meaning, if I'm in GitLab or GitHub, I create my stages, I scan my containers, I scan my code, I test my code. I make sure that the deployment actually happens, it's self-healing and so forth and so on. So we're gonna get into a lot of things today. It says here why in the past the role of security was isolated to a specific team. All right, so now you got some people that do agile and some people that do waterfall. Waterfall is, hey, I did this, it's complete, and then we'll do this. And I did this and it's complete, and then we'll do this. Meaning there's nothing going on down here. These people are not doing anything, they're not working on anything. It's slow process, waterfall. So everybody's like, be agile, make your sprint shorter, attack multiple ways of doing things. And let's pull up a diagram so you can truly understand waterfall versus agile. And let's just go to images and we'll go here. This is really right here. Here's really where it gets the play right here. So yeah, I agree, whatever. All right, so here we go. Waterfall versus agile, and blow up a little more. All right, that looks good. So requirements, then you do your design, then you implement, and then you test, and then you do maintenance. What we're saying inside of being agile is, one, we're gonna automate each one of these steps. So inside of our CI/CD pipeline, we'll have a testing phase. We'll also have a security phase when we start talking about DevSec Ops. We'll also have design, but you can see everything is ongoing, quickly to fail. We're not waiting 2 weeks to fail. We're gonna fail within 30 minutes. We're gonna fail within an hour. We're gonna get that feedback. Creating a quicker feedback loop is what we want here.
Yeah,
As you
because
can see,
they're overlapping. And in the
yeah,
waterfall method, all the requirements have to be met before they move on to the design phase. So that's one of those things that waterfall is so old and so comfy, because they want to make sure all those things are met before the next phase happens. And you can also have waterfall and agile happening at the same time in different
mhm.
departments based on the
Yeah.
project.
And you'll find that a lot of people are probably still waterfall than they are agile.
And
they
they just
claim
over
they're
there training people
they
for
claim they're
nothing. Like,
agile, but they really be waterfall. What is the best programming language to start? It depends on what you're trying to get into. Honestly, if you're looking to stay ahead of the game right now, I would say Go, Rust, and Python are your top three. If you're looking just, and we're gonna see this in the video that we're talking about, just as a at a basic level, anything around again Bash, Python, Rust, Go will probably be your best thing. But if you're going embedded, and working with quants and stuff, then maybe C++ and Rust. But those are your four basics. And you can go to Exorcism, you can go to a couple other places and just start practicing programming. You can get a book and just start practicing programming, right? And just start playing around with it for yourself. Know the basics and go from there if you wanted to. All right, so that's on the agile versus waterfall. It says in the past, the role of security was isolated to a specific team in the final stage of development. In other words, when we get through with everything, then we apply security versus get shifting. That's why they call it shifting left and putting security in the forefront mixed in the beginning. Says that wasn't problematic when development cycles lasted months or even years. For those days, but those days are over. Effective DevOps ensures rapid and frequent development cycles, sometimes weeks or days, but outdated security practice can undo the most efficient DevOps initiatives. So now we have DevSecOps, right? Now, in a collaborative framework of DevOps, security is a shared responsibility integrated from the end to end. It's the mindset that is so important it led some to coin the term DevSecOps to emphasize the need to build a security foundation in the DevOps initiatives. So DevSecOps. So here's the security person right here, DevSecOps, right? All right. DevSecOps means thinking about an application and infrastructure security from the start. It also means automating some of the security gates to keep the DevOps workflow from slowing down. Now, on the meetup on Wednesday, I talked about STIGs, and we looked at MindPoint, and we looked at some Ansible playbooks on stigging our containers, stigging our servers. What does that look like? What does that come from? And there are different security controls from if you're working with HIPAA and you're being HIPAA compliant, from you working with you may be working with something with the FAA, you may be working with something with finance. So there are different types of compliance and security standards that you must meet, but you don't want the paperwork of meeting those standards. You want the actual automation of different playbooks to meet those standards. All right, so selecting the right tools to continuously integrate security, like agreeing on integrated development environment and IDE, with security features can help these goals. However, effective DevOps security requires more than tools. It builds a cultural changes of DevOps to integrate the work of security teams rather sooner than later. And then here's an interview that looks like, oh girl, um, uh, from the conference. Dion, let me grab that interview here. 4 minutes long, but let me grab it and pull it up on a thing and we can watch that interview that she's doing. All right, so here we go. And let me turn my sound on.
Talk to more than one developer who really sees security as getting in the way of getting to market.
A lot of developers don't learn about security principles, even if they've been in the industry for a long time.
What I find interesting in the DevOps space, particularly as we start to move to container-based applications, it seems like some of the things we've always known about security really are starting to change.
When we think about DevOps,
I don't know what that is.
just DevOps, no matter what the application delivery or deployment target is, it really needs to be DevSec Ops. And that was the original intent, but it gets lost sometimes. One of Red Hat's customers, and I'm not allowed to mention their name, but one of the big changes they made in adopting DevOps, and this happened to be in a containerized environment, they needed to start thinking about security as code. You want that integrated right at the beginning.
Every organization has, historically has scheduled downtime, right? And they went through these patch cycles and they did the updates. And I think what we found is that the nature of the threats keeps accelerating.
With a containerized application, what you need to be patching is the application, but it's the container image that you use to deploy the application. You restart at the beginning of your pipeline and you patch the application and you rebuild the container image. Depending on the severity of the newly discovered vulnerability, I may decide that I'm going to continue to leave it running until I get this rebuilt container image ready to go through all my security gates, through my testing, and ready for deployment. And I can slowly move traffic over from the already running container, the previous version, to the new version. So I don't have any downtime at all.
And the reason that many of our customers have partnered with us for so many years is because we do such a great job on, working across the industry, whether it's, hardware based or other sorts of vulnerabilities and risk, and then getting that out to our customers very quickly. And from a more traditional operations view, there's many tools and processes that are well proven to do that. How do we integrate all that into this container world?
It's a great question because, again, so a containerized application is made up of many pieces. So instead of pulling down a jar file or a tar file for my database or an RPM, I'm pulling down container images. I need to know that these are a little bit more opaque. I need to be able to have the tools in place to scan those images. But ideally also, I'm working with content from a trusted vendor. And so Red Hat has the Red Hat Container Catalog, where we have vetted versions, containerized images for, a lot of the open source that our developers need. And when new vulnerabilities are discovered, we update the images. And there's also a technology built into OpenShift called image streams that helps our OpenShift users track and be notified of newly updated images in order to help streamline that build process, right? Again, I'm not patching in place. I am rebuilding my container image and redeploying.
One of the
stop right there. One of the key things she said is, "I'm not patching in place." In other words, your development cycle, your push with your application out, you should be able to rebuild that container with the updated security information in it and get it deployed out onto the actual production without rebuilding the container. Now, you asked about rootless containers, right? And I pulled up because this is the thing for Partman. Because one of the things was, and I'm gonna read it off. Rootless containers are containers that can be created and managed by users without admin rights. Most of the Docker containers, when Docker goes through or doing the deployments, the containers have root privileges in them. And so one of the things, if I got root privileges and so forth, I can actually, if I wanted to break out, there was a potential case that I could break out of the container and get a hold to the actual system itself And once I get a hold to the actual system itself, I may be on a system, especially if I'm in the cloud with other people who are using containers. So I get access to the system to manipulate that. So that's one of the things. But here they saying they're also saying rootless containers have several advantages. They add a new layer of security, even if the container engine runtime or orchestrator is compromised, the attacker won't gain root privileges on the host. And that's what I mean. If I get out of that, break out of that container, I don't get root privileges on the host, right? They also allow multi unprivileged users to run containers on the same machine and in high performance computing environments, right? And finally, but not least, they allow for isolation instead of nested containers. So instead of having nested containers, like a container within a container or a container within, well, basically a container within a container, D&D, you can allow for isolation. It says to better understand these advantages, consider traditional resource management and scheduling. This type of system should be an unprivileged user, right? So I don't have to run a privileged user. I don't have to give this privileged user all this access, unnecessary access. Remember, you want to create, want to make sure your security and your attack vector is low. You want to keep that to a minimum, right? For security perspective, fewer privileges are better. With rootless containers, not ruthless, but rootless containers, you can run a containerized process as any other process without needing to escalate the privileges. There's no daemon. Podman creates a child process. And so they walk in this particular one, they walk through using Podman as a rootless, not ruthless container, not ruthless records, not NWA, but rootless container, right? Let's finish off this video and then we'll get into some more DevSec Ops. And I got an interview I want to look at.
Is that we've just recently done a tech preview of on the Ansible side is Ansible Security Automation, trying to take event analytics and actions and link them across some of those different things, because again, you can't operate in silos anymore. You've got to have the integration, you've got to have the speed of execution and reaction, but also something that you can report on, because that's the other side of security, is the compliance,
traceability, auditability,
exactly,
all of that. And that's one of the reasons that, again, if we think about the compliance as code and the automation infrastructure as code, the more you automate, the more you have actual documentation that you can share with your auditors,
right,
and demonstrate, here's how I'm complying, here's what I've implemented, here's the log files.
Well, security is going to continue to be a top priority for DevOps, whether you're a developer, whether you're on the operations team, or whether you're a business or a security analyst. And, I'm really excited because I see Red Hat making investments in so many of these different domains and trying to address the whole life cycle of security across dev and operations.
All right, so that's cool. Now let's get into this video. This is from, I think he's also a red hatter as well too. I'm not I got to double verify, but let me get into this. Any questions so far? I haven't finished it. So let's let's go back and let's pause. Let's go back again. Pause. Make sure we don't have any questions.
He looked like he in the basement.
Yeah.
Life of a DevSec. That is the life of a DevSec Ops engineer, just in the shadows.
Loving every bit of it. All right, so let's get into
in the dark, man. How are you in the dark?
So this is from Cyberspatial. The person here is Russ Mimsky is a DevSecOps engineer, cloud architect of 30 years in IT and cybersecurity. From coaching U.S. cyber patriot teams to building Virginia's cyber range, he's quite the colorful career. By the way, it's pronounced My Mishyazuska. My Mishyazuska. Did I say that right? Zuja.
I don't know. I can't even see it on the screen.
Oh,
but
hold
you
on.
probably killed it.
Right here. My Mishyazuja. That's his name right here.
My Mishyazuja. Yeah. That's real Russian.
Yeah. In this interview, he talks about cloud risk, future cloud technologies, thoughts on certification, his personal journey in cybersecurity. There's also advice for DevSecOps careers, DevSecOps combined, blah, 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 blah. And then here's a breakdown of it there. His books recommendations are The Phoenix Project, the DevOpsec book, Hands-on Security in DevOps, Agile Application, the SRE workbook, the SRE workbook from O'Reilly, the SRE Site Reliability Engineering workbook. All these books I have recommended. All these books you can find on O'Reilly. I also have these books up in case you need the links and so forth, but you have the idea of what this is. I'm going to give this interview to here, but we're going to get started with reviewing this interview. Why? Because I want you to understand where DevSecOps plays, but for your edification, let me pull this over here. Let me get this out of my way for now, just right now, just really quickly. I actually pulled up this safe for DevOps practitioners. This is a life, right? This one here, we're gonna go through this too. This is certified Kubernetes security specialist, and it's a study guide. It's actually the CKS exam. I actually pulled up this one too. This is a actual white paper. We're not gonna read it. I was just going through the topics, but let me scroll up. DevSecOps in Kubernetes. What does that mean? What does that look like? Here I went one step further because I know some of you like CompTIA. What is containerization, and how and what does penetration testing have to do with containerization? And how you do pen testing on a Kubernetes cluster? How do you do pen testing on containers? What is your role as a DevSecOps person or a cloud security person or a site reliability engineer, or even in AI, security and AI, and how to play in that space. One step further, we talk about value stream mapping. We'll get into that. He talks about it inside of the interview, but also part of Agile as well too. Here it is interview questions. What are DevSecOps interview questions? When we're looking at that, and I may have to do a separate video because it might not be. I'm not gonna have time to get through everything, but I may do just a separate video and post it up. Top 20 SRE questions, and again, modern enterprise architecture. You are the solution. Modern enterprise architecture using DevSecOps and cloud native in large enterprises. In large enterprises, what does that look like? This is a book came out in February. The topics in this book are why we need enterprise architecture, transforming to modern architecture, creating and floating architecture, scaling in the business with enterprise architecture, and changing the role of the enterprise architect, right? The next one is continuous compliance, encryption, security on AWS, the DevSecOps series on AWS. This came out in 2021. There's a newer version of this, but I just pulled it just so you can see. These are live lessons. How do you apply DevSecOps to AWS? I also pulled ones for Azure, Oracle, DigitalOcean. There are books out there and videos out there for that. So here we are here. Next one that I thought was interesting. I didn't want to get into it, but we might. DevSecOps in practice with Tanzu, which is VMware's product for DevSecOps, but also here accelerating DevSecOps on AWS as well. And this is the one he was talking about, hands-on security in DevOps. That's a good one. That's from Packet. You can go to packet.com and get that book. Here's the nitty and grit here. AI at the edge. What does that look like with AI at the edge? The algorithms, the data sets, designing edge applications, quality assurance, and so forth. And how does AI and DevSecOps interact with each other? Also pull up AI intelligence and quantum computing. Very, very prominent topic. you're talking about being ahead of the game here. Understanding this is very crucial. We'll probably have to say that for a separate show. Probably have to say that for a separate show. I'll bookmark all of these as well too. But deploying AI in the enterprise, IT approaches for design and DevOps, governance, change management, blockchain, and quantum computing. Like I said before, all these things go together. They are sisters and brothers and cousins and so forth. And so picking out where you want to go, what route you want to go in, you're probably going to touch every last one of these things. You're probably going to touch blockchain in some aspect. You're going to touch quantum in some aspect, right? All right, so let's get into this interview. Let's pull it back over. Let's get into this interview. I'll stop along the way, but I don't want to generate too much time in between of what he has to say. All right, so let's go.
I love how marketing people paint what we do as magic. We're not magicians, we're not wizards, okay? So for instance, the concept of self-healing, that just really means you're restarting a service, ladies and gentlemen. That's it. Let's turn it off and on again. That's literally what we're doing, except we're doing that at a code level.
Today we have on our show Aras or Russ Mimiziasija, a cloud architect and a veteran in the world of DevSecOps. DevSecOps is a newer term that describes the continuous integration and automation between software development, cybersecurity, and IT operations, which requires a deep mastery of all three fields. Russ has a bachelor's degree in computer science and a master's in information technology from Virginia Tech, focusing on cybersecurity and machine learning, along with a score of certifications on top of his 30-plus years experience. He's a SANS instructor candidate, AWS solutions architect professional, and overall security evangelist looking to help others in the community to adopt best practices in their organizations.
So I'm going to pause right there. You see his certifications right under his name, right? Oracle DBA, VMware, 4, 5, and 6, CISSP, CCNA, A+, IDO, MCSE, GSEC, that's coming from SANS. He's also a SANS instructor, cloud solutions architect. Again, your skill set, your brand, your image, your money, right? Your skill set, your brand, your image, your money. In the story. How you come out and build your skill set, build your brand. Again, when people talk about you in different rooms, they should know your name. They should know what you stand for, your brand, your skill set, your image, your money. Right? You want to be in the rooms, you want to be able to be in the rooms where people are like, oh yeah, we should have him come in or her come in and actually do a DevSecOps training. Oh, well, how much that gonna charge you? Well, I'll charge you 25 for that. Okay. Would you be willing to take 22? Yeah. Okay, yeah. You'll be here for a week. We'll pay you 22,000 for a week to train our people. Oh, okay, no problem. Your people need some training over like DevSecOps, GitOps, automation, how to handle this, how to present this to customers, build it up. Oh, okay. For us to come in for 6 months, like, yeah, that may be 1.5 million or whatnot, will be the dedicated resources to you to do X, Y, and Z. You need somebody to come in and train or corporate training. Okay, that's going to be a different type of bundle. X, Y, and Z. We'll put this together. This is what we'll teach, and then we'll go from there. Right. So again, you get a chance to make your brand, your image, how people see you out here. So he has an image, right? He has a brand. He also has his skill sets that allow him to go in and out of rooms and teach and train and speak. And me and Dee was just doing this week. What does it look like to speak at conferences? How do you put your speaker engagements together? What does that look like? So again, we got a special series coming up that we're gonna do. If you're not one of our earners, you will probably miss out on that because we're saving that for our earners, and we're putting that all together as well too. So again, he's got his credentials, and not only do his, sometimes your credentials can speak for itself, because in some cases you may not never use some of these things again. You might have got it and never use them again, but it is what it is. All right, let's get back to it.
Russ currently works as lead DevSecOps engineer for a startup called Anna, and is also an assistant professor of cybersecurity at California State University, Long Beach. In this video, we're going to talk about DevSecOps, the security ramifications for cloud technologies, and some ways and means of educating yourself towards becoming a DevSecOps pro. So, Russ, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Ricky. This is an honor and a privilege.
So let's just get right into it and talk about your background, specifically cloud architecture, DevSecOps. Can you walk us through what is DevSecOps exactly?
It's a fairly new concept, right? And the hilarity is it's now subsiding and giving way to now what's known as GitOps. But in a nutshell, the idea of DevSecOps is the idea that we're building security into the DevOps process. For those of you that may not know, we used to have developers and then we used to have systems engineers, aka the operations people. And these were two disparate systems that were all trying to achieve the same goal. So circa 2016, 2015, somewhere in there, we decided it would be a really good idea in the industry if we could actually combine these two and actually do something well put together. So following the Agile methodology, DevOps picked up a huge capability and huge backing by giants like Google, like Facebook, like Netflix, especially those that were geared towards the cloud started doing DevOps and Agile-based development practices. It was all well and great until they started realizing we have this problem called hacking and we're really not doing a good job with security. So maybe we should include security at the beginning rather than at the end, which is what most companies tended to do. And that thought gave birth to DevSecOps. So the idea of SAST, DAST, RASP, IAST, which basically are interactive application security testing, static application security testing, dynamic application security testing, and runtime application security concepts were born out of DevSecOps. But really at its core, what does it come down to? It's somebody that knows both the development side of the shop as well as the operations / systems engineering side of the shop that has a security focus and can lead both teams, can be that bridge between the two to make sure that both sides are doing things in a secure manner.
So did that make sense what he just said? You're leading, right? You're combining developers, operations, and security together. But not only that, when it comes to DevSecOps, it's not just the security of just the code or just the container. It's the entire code, the container, the host that is on, the keys, the vault, and also taking it even one step further is security of even the credentials that you all are using with each other, certificate files as well too. It is everything, right? So learning DevSecOps puts you in a situation where you'll probably be doing more building. Now, there is also another side of DevSecOps where there's a software developer of DevSecOps. In other words, that person is probably really good at Rust or Python or React, and they build their own applications, they build their own APIs, and on top of that, they also build out CI/CD pipelines. That's when you start getting into the like 300, 450 range on that. Usually a little bit more senior on that when it comes to the actual pay. That's not including equity. That's not including stocks. That is just baseline pay when you start getting into that. All right. So let's get back to it.
So a DevSecOps lead, in my case, I actually demonstrate what needs to be done. And if necessary, I train people in this principle and we help them get things done. So DevSecOps therefore becomes a key element in ensuring you have a secure and proper delivery of mission objectives from start to end.
Awesome. In cybersecurity, most people, first thing they think of is hacking and maybe incident response and infrastructure, DevOps, not seen as sexy, which in my opinion is really one of the more underrated aspects of cybersecurity. And so would you think learning it is so important?
So I'm sure you recall SQL injection and cross-site scripting and just your basic reflection attacks, so on and so forth. Web application penetration testing, web application security testing, just messing around with the websites. If you think about it, the developers have now become both the developer of the application, but they also have to develop with a blue team mindset. So they're on the defense. They're needing to make sure that their code is secure against these standard types of attacks. So therefore, it's important for us to educate them in these matters so that they're aware, oh yeah, maybe I should put a boundary check on that for loop. Or, oh yeah, maybe I should make sure I'm actually sanitizing my inputs. And maybe I should validate those inputs too. So it's concepts like these that we have to help our developers ingrain into their everyday code so that overall, when the time comes and that code is put into production, it's been battle tested as much as possible internally so that at this point, you're then open only to 0 days that the developer may not have been aware of.
Right. So again, testing, right? That's the other piece. There are just literally people who are just test engineers that have a stage or they have a set of tools in a stage in which they test the application, in which they're testing within the pipeline. And so you just may have testers that created these that automated their testing, and they say, hey, here's where we need to add this, include this inside the pipeline. And then they do their testing, but they got their own inside of GitLab or GitHub. They have their own repository. They have a unique set of steps that, depending on the actual application, depending on what the application is written in, they have a set of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things that it's going out to test, right? But the goal is not to slow down of things of getting to production. The goal is to get to production as quickly as possible without any vulnerabilities in it. How do I automate that? How do I get the output for that? And how do we test for that? And how do we make sure that everybody knows that when this fails, the feedback loop is to get it to the person, to the people that actually know it failed and who can fix it, and let's get it back out there and rolling again, right? Sounds like a lot. You do a lot. It is a lot. However, just like Afri said, it is geek money. If you do not like geek money, please let me know. I will send you some masking tape to your address so you can sit on the sideline at $35,000 while we go out here and make this money, right? I will call you when I need some air in my tires. Oh, never mind. That'll be automated too. Never mind. All right, let's go.
But the reality of the matter is, unfortunately, organizations can't really afford to necessarily just scale up their security implementation as much as they would like. They may have an application that perhaps they invested even up to millions, and that application may not be compatible with the latest version of the operating system. And unfortunately, let's assume there's a 0 day about a kernel level vulnerability where the only way to fix it is to upgrade the operating system. In this case, the organization is stuck. Now, the good news is there are what we call compensating controls that you can put in place of the patching process, what we call virtual patching, right, in the industry. But again, the sad reality of the matter is most organizations either don't invest heavily enough into these concepts, or they just simply don't have the intelligence and capability to be able to pull it off. The sad part is, as much as we're trying as cybersecurity experts to help organizations and companies move forward with their needs, we're unfortunately not doing a good enough job to get them to upkeep their existing investment in their existing infrastructure. And as such, that's leading to holes, which then hackers are leaking in through, and you're seeing the results in the news. Leaked 5 million plus records, like Spotify being the most recent one that got hit. Spotify did everything right. They just unfortunately still got hacked because of the most basic of principles out there, which was maintenance.
Awesome. So DevSecOps seems like it spans both the breadth of making sure that the software engineers, web app developers, that their code is sound, but also making sure that your infrastructure and the design is also sound. And nowadays, a lot of these IaaS, infrastructure as code, and your playbooks and everything, people might be using just default templates with keys just, scattered everywhere.
Yes, unfortunately. The cool part is nowadays there are tons of tools out there available that allow you to actually scan for default configurations, default tooling, and left behind SSH keys, Git keys, and signing keys, basically just secrets in general. And the frustration is it is so easy to clean up and to make sure that these things are not left in production. So very recently, we were dealing with a situation, and there were a bunch of development libraries included in a particular function at the time. And I said, why on dollar deity green earth are we actually including these things in production? And so I ended up having to go from chain to chain to chain until I finally got to the developer. And I said, hey, why did you actually leave the libraries? And he said, oh, wait, the libraries are still there? It reminded me of that joke. This commander comes on base and he notices two soldiers guarding a bench. He asked, he's like, why are those guys guarding that bench? And they're like, we don't know, sir, but it's been tradition. He goes, okay. So he asks when he gets to his office, let me call up the previous commander and ask him. And the commander says, the commander before me was doing it, so that's why I was keeping up the tradition. That's interesting. So he calls the previous commander. At this point, the retired general was in his 80s, and he calls and says, sir, I'm very sorry to bother you, but I was just wondering, there's a bench out there with two officers guarding it. Do you happen to know why this was instituted? General says, the paint still hasn't dried? And here's the thing. At the end of the day, a developer left the development libraries and the code for whatever purpose it was, and he forgot to clean up. But the operations people and the systems people have no idea what their libraries are there for. They're assuming what they were given is final, so they take it and they put it into production. And that's right there the issue. The DevSecOps guy is the one that goes, let's do a sanity check on here. Let's figure out why this is. So then we get to trace back and actually find out, oh yeah, that shouldn't have been there in the first place.
So what types of technologies and skills do you think it's important to learn for DevSecOps infrastructure related activities?
So the trend these days is for somebody to understand CI/CD, which stands for continuous integration, continuous delivery. And what's going to make you valuable from the CI/CD side? Jenkins, Travis CI, Circle CI, and even GitLab's own built-in CI that it has. Or are you aware of any of the Azure CI side of things? You're going to be catching the headhunter's attention. But these are the what I call top 5 of the CI/CD solutions out there. From a language-specific focus, obviously Bash is still king in the operating system world. So really that comes down to then understanding your CMDB offerings, which are your configuration management tool. You have Ansible, you have Puppet, you have Salt, you have Chef, you have Packer, and then you have Python. Python is your kind of universal glue that you glue these 5 services with to generate something. So what I usually tell my students and to those that are first time starting out, the systems operations, the DevOps' ops side is a lot like building Legos. So I'm going to say, for instance, build the latest, say, Star Wars Lego set that I just bought. The dev side is the one that actually makes those pieces. The ops side is the one that takes those pieces and actually builds the Lego process itself. Now, you can use super glue if you're really not going to break it down again, or you can, as Lego was intended to be, break it all down and build it back up and do that in an automated fashion as quickly as possible each time. And as you keep doing it each time, you end up improving the process, where you may end up even having extra pieces and you'll still have the same structure. And the leaner the model, the stronger the durability of the tool, and therefore the simpler the tool, and therefore the less amount of headache from the tool. Oh, I'm in SecOps, Russ. Does that mean I'm DevSecops? And the answer is no. I've had people that call themselves, oh, I'm a DevOps guy, he's a SecOps guy, he's an Ops guy, I'm a Dev guy. No. A DevSecOps person has the experience and capability to deal with these types of situations from all facets. This person needs to have the experience from the security world, from the development world, and from the operations world. So in essence, this person is truly a joker of all trades.
Boom. Joker of all trades. And a lot of you ask me all the time, like, where do I get this experience from? Everywhere. Everywhere. Yeah, it's everywhere. So it's your development, whether you learn how to use GitLab to say you take Python and start building a container. Okay, you build a container in a CI/CD pipeline. And what are you going to do with that container? What are you going to do with that application? And it could be very simple. It could be a Python container or a web container that actually all you do is deploy just a HTML page. Right now, where are you going to deploy that? On Kubernetes cluster, or are you going to deploy it on a VM or instance in AWS? Doesn't matter where you deploy it at. What matters is you understand the process. You understand how to build it in the process, right? And on top of all of that, making sure that you understand how to secure it, how to test it, how to protect it, how to open up ports, how to make sure you minimize the attack vector. Those are the things that you're going to learn. Those are the things that you do in DevSecOps. So you can go down the road of pen testing and come into DevSecOps. You can go down the road of being a network engineer and come into DevSecOps. You can go down the road of being in management and then being a team lead in DevSecOps. You can go down the road of cloud and then come back and go down the road of DevSecOps. You can come into it from any direction that you want to, because you're going to utilize all those skill sets inside of this. It's just what you're going to do, right? I hope that was clear. So let's get into a little bit more of what he's saying.
You can actually put this person in the security side and they'll be able to do your cybersecurity. You can take this person and put them in the developer and they can actually write some code. You can take this person and put them in the ops world and they can actually start deploying what's been developed and made sure it can make it all the way to operations and then to production through the cycles of alpha and beta and so on and so forth. That's what it takes to be a DevSecOps.
So what kind of salary ranges do people in the DevSecOps world expect to command?
Depending on the cost of living, in other words, if you're in the California region versus you're in the East Coast side of the world, you can see anywhere from a beginner from 80,000 to 100,000 easy. And right now, the top tier are making 250 and above. And your median is around, I would say, 150 for those who have been in the DevSecOps world with at least a couple of years of experience, if not a little more than that. So it's going to depend on their qualifications. So a very good friend of mine back 10 years ago said, Russ, look, for somebody who has 4 years of experience versus somebody who just finished their bachelor's, you're going to be here and they're going to be at the bottom. But he said, if you, as that 4-year level experience with no bachelor's degree person, don't go after your degree, this person, as they start gaining, they get to continue to go up. Whereas you are stuck here because you don't have that degree. And I said to myself, wow, really? Does a bachelor's mean that much in the technology world? Now, this concept that I'm discussing has been argued back and forth so many times.
All right, so this is a conversation I wanted to have. I kind of had this yesterday. Does your degree matter? Ooh, woo. Ooh, woo. Does your degree matter? Ooh, let me tell you where it matters. Yes, if you're going to get into anything related to government contracting and become a worker, it is going to be a requirement for you to have a degree. It's just what it is. It is what it is. Does it matter the type of degree? Sometimes, depending on where you're coming from, right? And when I say that, meaning you could have had a bachelor's of degree in English, but you worked in the field for, say, DevSec Ops or computer engineering or something of the nature for the past 6 years. Nobody really is going to look at you like that. They're just going to be like, yeah, they got experience. Then we're gonna keep it moving. Um, does your degree matter if you're going to work at a startup? Yes and no, depending on what you're working on. If you're going to work at a startup and you don't have any type of you don't have a degree, but you want to work on AI and machine learning, maybe, depending on who's doing the interview. Let me say it that way. Depending on who pulls your job, your resume, and who you connect with, that's where it depends on. That's where your network comes into play. Does your degree matter if you're out here in the landscape right now with more than 300 to 400,000 people laid off? Probably, probably, depending on what you're looking at again. So, what will I tell you? I would tell you this: if you're in school, go ahead and get your degree, but be intentional about what you get your degree in. Who what your focus is going it matters. If you feel like you're really really good at programming, I'm going to tell you go either computer engineering or something along, I don't want to say computer science, but yeah, you can do computer science. If you're really good at like embedded devices, you tinker, this is your thing, I'm going to say electrical engineer. There are cybersecurity degrees, and there are degrees that are focused on the compliance side of cybersecurity. Now, when I see these things, I don't really know the curriculum unless I've looked at it. For the most part, when I hear about somebody going into cybersecurity, I ask the question, what about cybersecurity are you going into? In other words, are you security plus? Are you learning cloud security? Are you learning how to build stuff in AWS? Do you play with Packer? Do you build a container? What are you doing? Because I have a lot of questions, and you should too, because you should want to know at the end of this, who graduated, what did they make, what companies is hiring, who you're promoting to, who do you have partnerships with, and do they have internships, or do they have some type of apprentice program where you can take that year or that time to skill up with what you didn't get in college? You can take that time to skill up and then roll into the class. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, you pretty much touched it.
Okay. All right. So let's get back into the position.
Some people would say, look, person X I know got his high school degree from a GED program and he's making millions. Well, look, Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg, they dropped out of college. They didn't even finish. Yeah. But for starters, those guys dropped out of Harvard. They didn't drop out of Joe Schmo's community college. So that kind of tells you what level they're at. And then secondly, do you need a college degree to get to somewhere? No. But it sure does make things a lot easier. I can tell you that. Because when you're interacting with an interviewer or when you're interacting with a job application hosting organization, they have their check marks that they have to go through. And one of the very first checks they do is education. Close to 90+% of DevSecops positions out there require that you have a bachelor's. Again, if you have a significant level of experience, you perhaps could bypass that requirement for a college degree. But that being said, assuming you have at least a bachelor's, you have at least 5 years of experience in the DevOps world, and preferably you've at least built, led, or been a part of a senior team of some sort, that's when you get to call yourself a DevSecOps person.
What type of work roles, teams, or organizations would people with a strong foundation in DevSecOps have an opportunity to work in?
So startups are clobbering at DevSecOps people. So the good news is, as someone who is currently employed in such a position, I can tell you on a daily basis, I get at least 3 to 4 job offers from different people. So I get asked this a lot. What's the difference between architect and engineer, professor? And so I tell them an architect is a person that can take the business requirement and translate that into an action plan for an engineer to be able to implement.
Boom. Architect. Take again, when you go to these meetings, what is the actual overall goal or the KPIs that the company is trying to meet, right? What are they trying to meet? And so how does that translate from, hey, CEO, CFO stated, or CDO stated, we need to be compliant, HIPAA compliant by June. You lead engineers of the different teams say, okay, what does that mean for my team? How do we all need to interact with each other? And what do we need to put into our backlog as to these things need to get accomplished in order to do X, Y, and Z? And how quickly can we get those things done? And who do we need to talk to get those things done? Because sometimes you may not have the actual technology, or you may not have the right people on the team to understand how to complete the mission. And so there may be some training that someone has to do. They may have to reach out. You may end up having to hire a third party to come in and implement those things. Then they train your people up, and then you go on about your business and go from there. So it's a number of things there that happen with that. On the engineer side, the engineer's probably gonna sit aside and probably shadow and learn and have those one-on-ones to get X, Y, and Z done. So that's usually what that is. All right. So let's get back to it.
That's the biggest difference there. And the only way that talent comes is by experience. So we all start somewhere, and that somewhere is your junior developer, your junior data analyst, your junior operations person. That's where you're gonna start. What I usually again tell people is look at junior data analyst, operations, and developer positions. Look for junior DevOps developer if you're going to be a developer. Look for QA engineers. If you already have experience, let's say you're a veteran developer and you're like, just because I typed in some Angular or some Node code or some TypeScript, now all of a sudden I get to add $40,000 to my salary base, and I'm not doing that, I'm crazy. I want to take advantage of that too. You can. There are tons of freebie courses and certificates out there for you to take advantage of. And when you do, then you can apply for, essentially, instead of a just developer role, look for DevOps role. And it's the same exact thing.
So then what kind of books, courses, resources would you find useful for learning DevSecOps? And I know the answer is all of them, but are there any ones that are more tailored towards DevSecOps rather than just simply having a developer experience, security experience, and ops IT experience?
Some of the books I would recommend, I can't praise this enough. Gene Kim is a great writer, and The Phoenix Project. It's a classic, and it's absolutely brilliant. It actually helps you understand DevOps truly.
All right, I'm gonna pause right there because I want to go down because it's actually a series that you should be looking at. Phoenix. I'm not spelling this wrong. We're going books because there are several books that you should be looking at. All right, so it's the Phoenix Project, and here we go right here. The Phoenix Project, the Unicorn Project, and the DevOps Handbook are 3 main books that you should be reading or have read. Get them on Audible if you don't want to read them. All right. I'm gonna read that again. The Phoenix Project, the Unicorn Project, and the DevOps Handbook. All right. Again, I haven't had time to spin up the book club. We need to do the book club. I just have not had time to do that. That should be part of our thing. But again, those are the three, right? And let's get back to those are the three in that Gene Kim line there. The most definitely good to read. So let's get back to the video. Let me see. Is it this one? No, it's this one. All right, so let's go. The unicorn part. You forgot the DevOps handbook. That's the other one. All right, let's go.
On that, there is the DevOps Sec book and the Agile Application Security book. So those are my top three that I usually recommend to people.
So the DevOps Sec book is the one that I had here. Oh, that's DevOps thingy. Hold on. This DevOps Kubernetes. Hold on, I'm looking for my O'Reilly stuff. Yeah, I thought I had it up here. Nah, you get it. The DevOps Sec book. Let me just do this right here. DevOps. And let me do book. Maybe thinking about this one. This one right here. DevOps Sec. This book right here. DevOps Sec. Delivering secure software through continuous delivery. Again, CD could be continuous deployment or continuous delivery. That's what they mean there. All right, so let's get back to him. We're not gonna finish the whole video, but I just want to get some important stuff out of here.
The DevOps Sec book is by Jim Bird. Agile Application Security. Laura Bell is the one that wrote that one. Every DevSecops person has a passion. So you can have a DevSecOps person that's really strong in developer experiences. You can have a DevSecOps person that's really passionate about operations. And you can have a DevSecOps person that's really passionate about cybersecurity. So I myself, I have a cybersecurity background, and that's what I'm most passionate about. So what I usually tell people is grab these three because they're a good enough representation of the triad. And then whatever your shtick, what makes you happy, there's the hands-on security and DevOps. That's another good book. Focus on books towards that one with the DevSecOps focus. And then if you're about operations, I usually tell people the SRE and the Site Reliability Workbook by the Google's operation team. That one's awesome.
All right, so the SRE stuff, I've shown this before, but you can just go here. SRE Google, and the first, see right here, SRE.Google is it right here. These books right here, that there are books on here. If you go to books, building secure, reliable systems, they just added this, but the Site Reliability Workbook and the Site Reliability Engineering, and it's in the description of this video as well too. If you're interested in that. So let's get back over here, and then let's blow this back up, and let's go.
And then if you're about cybersecurity, welcome to hell. And grab some books from the shelf because we're going to have some fun reading lots and lots of books. Learning never ends, guys. Usually I tell this to all of my students, and I have the need to reiterate that here. Learning never ends. It's important for you to always stay on top of the latest trend. Especially in the DevSecOps world, things are flying by so fast, so quickly that you're like, wait, I just learned about DevSecOps and now it's called GitOps. Wait, what about ChatOps? What happened to Slack? Whoa. You don't have time to actually stop to focus. Focus on the basics. How do you eat an elephant? And the answer is one bite at a time. Now, how do you actually learn to take a bite out of an elephant? That's where you need to learn the basics. And so the best way to learn those basics is by reading books and hands on the keyboard. I've had so many students that have learned theoretical knowledge. Oh my God, they memorized the heck out of what I told them. But then when I asked them, okay, so here's a real life scenario. Walk me through conceptually how you would solve this, and then break this down into components, and then tell me how you would configure or work on each component and how you would tie these components together. They freeze. And the reason people freeze when they are faced with such a question is because they just don't have that experience to know how that tool does what it does. Like everybody knows Jenkins is a great CI/CD tool, but did you know you can actually execute Jenkins in ways it wasn't designed to solve different business challenges? So for instance, I actually had a guy, so he was maintaining a hospital, and all the machines that take your blood pressure, they actually have a specific name, but these things are actually network devices. And they're literally deployed physically all throughout the hospital, but they all ride on the same wireless network that they had. So what this one person I know actually abused their Jenkins deployment. And anytime a new build of the firmware for these devices came out, he actually used it essentially as a firmware patching tool. And I'm like, dude, it's Jenkins. And he's like, yeah, I get to do testing, I get to do pushing, I get to do pulling. And I'm like, but why? And it was just, that's the way he thought of doing it. Now, how many people do you know have done this? I literally know one person. But that's the guy I would hire if I had a truly unsolvable challenge or unthought of a problem before that needed to be addressed, because I know that guy has dealt with these tools in depth, that he can actually manipulate it to address a concern in a way that hadn't been addressed before. And that's what makes it so cool. I was doing brown bag lunches to help these people learn about Python so that they could learn at least how to code, so that they could then start automating some of the everyday tasks that they had. In this particular case, this guy had never in his life touched code. He had always considered code to be magic. And I'm looking at this guy, I'm like, you've been in the field for how long? And he's like, 32 years. And I'm like, you've been an IT pro for 32 years and you never picked up a single coding book in your life? Because I didn't have to. That's what software developers are for. And I'm like, what?
That's not uncommon. That's not uncommon. Easily not uncommon. Easily to be in the field for 32 years and never have to code. Why? Because it comes from the scenario of developers did their thing, you were operations, you handled the ops side, security handled their things. Now all three of those come together. And I did this talk at Lisa where I talked about DevSec Ops, quantum computing, and AI. And I did that back in 2016, 2017. And all the older people who had been in there, who had been in tech as a sysadmin, had no clue what I was talking about. They was like, this DevSec Ops seems like the thing that I need to go be a part of and learn. And you're like, yeah. And they was like, yeah, they how to build a DNS server, they can do it. How to install RPMs, they can do it. They were very good sysadmins, but then getting them to develop APIs, getting them to develop and develop scripts and talk to the actual database and so forth and so on. That's just not who they were, right? Maybe they have had some Ansible experience, but again, they've been sitting in the basement managing what they've been managing for all this time. And when the company starts to make a shift to bring in more people to do something else that's a little different, well, we're going to the cloud now. They don't have any cloud experience. And so they have to do worker retraining. And that was a true theme in 2015, 2016, 2017. I think we're coming out of that now in some instances, but I still get calls for we're migrating to the cloud. We need a cloud, we need a cloud, we need a solutions architect, we need a cloud architect, we need somebody that knows bare metal machines as well as the cloud. Do you know that? Because a lot of you don't even know what bare metal machine, what a bare metal machine look like. You've never seen a physical server and had to plug in the actual drives, had to connect the SAN. You have no clue what that looks like. You have no clue what that looks like. All you know is I go over to AWS and I log in and I get in with my credentials. And then once I in, and then I use Terraform. And then once I use my Terraform and then build out my stuff, I'm done, man. You see, I deployed this application, man. I'm done. No, 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 no. I am telling you, there is a longevity to knowing some things about what a bare metal machine looks like. What is it? How do you connect those things up? How do you ensure that is the thing you need to know? I'm telling you. Because there are companies still out there that still don't do, that still have bare metal machines that are doing the migration. All right, let's get back to it. Yeah, get over there. There you go. If y'all enjoyed, drop a one in the chat. If y'all enjoying this so far, I found it very resourceful. I was like, he's saying everything I've said, countless of times, but I think it coming from a different view. Somebody who has 30 years in the game with a ton of certs actually helps you out a little bit more, gives you a little bit of thing. Let me know if you enjoyed this or whatnot. I'm trying to give you the $200,000. I'm trying the $200,000 game. That's what I'm trying to give you. The $35,000 game. If you here for that, I can't help you. Now I can help you with the $35,000 game if you're being a contractor and you're like, hey, I gotta do this project for the next 3 months, and they offer me $60,000 for the next 3 months to do that. I'm with you. But if you're trying to be at 35,000 for the rest of your life, we're not the show for you. I'm gonna advise you to click on off. This ain't it. This ain't what you want. This ain't what you want. That's all I'm saying. Sit. All right, let's get back to it.
Right. And see, that's a risk, because if you have people operating your production environment, that your whole operations is based on some kind of automation code, some application. So in other words, you have a guy that has no clue what he's actually providing to the public, but except, okay, well, I know I need to click this has to be green, and that has to say this. What's the intelligence you're expecting out of that guy? And so that's the challenge. You need to help people stay fresh and stay ahead.
Cloud is one of those big buzzwords that's been around for a long time now. And I still have a hard time wrapping my head around how to explain what is the cloud? How would you demystify it?
So what I usually tell people about the cloud is, there is no cloud. Really, you're just recording and utilizing somebody else's computer. That's all it really is. You're just renting resources from a compute, storage, and memory base, as well as a network. With these four, the beauty of the cloud is you can only rent what you need for as much as you need for as long as you need. That's the beauty of the cloud. So the idea is it shifts the thinking from CapEx.
All right, so I'm going to shift forward because he talks about cloud and the risks that are associated with the cloud and the future of cloud technology. I'm going to jump to Mark 37, where he talks about how important are cybersecurity certifications, the value of cybersecurity programs, and then also what are the shortcomings of cyber education currently. And then the last 5 or 6 minutes he gives his journey. So let's hop to 37 here. See, right. But here, you see, it says 37. Let me see. I guess the timing may be off. Let's go right here because it says at the 37 mark. Let's go. We can listen to a little bit here. There we go, right there. Come on. Hey, man, come on forward. You don't like me? Oh, I hate when you
OpEx. So, in other words,
here we go. Here we go, 37 right there.
put it up.
So given that, what is your take on certifications then? We've talked about, hey, you should get a library card, but there's these things called certifications too. Another holy war to unleash.
So the first answer really you should be focusing on is what's the field you're going into? So if specifically your claim to fame is the DevSecops path, I would say at the very least, have certs that prove your development background, your security background, and your ops background. So good ones towards this are your Network Plus, your Security Plus, and your Linux Plus. So your CompTIA. I call this kind of the Holy Trinity. These three, they tend to be your basic starter pack, easy to knock out certs to get there. Then from your cloud aspect, Amazon continues to be one of the biggest claims to fame.
I'm gonna say this: the Holy Trinity is cool, but I'm in the background saying this. The Holy Trinity is cool, but I'm going to say go with your RACSA, get your Security Plus, and go get a SANS.org cert or a ISCS squared cert, and we'll talk about that after this. Be right back.
From the cloud providers aspect, so getting an Amazon cert is
Why did she walk away and now we can't hear it? That sucks. Well, I guess we're going to read it in the meantime. I hope that's okay with you guys because we can't hear it. But go ahead and read it. Damn, we can't hear the video anymore.
security,
Oh, my bad.
IT, development, and operations.
Let me start over.
I don't call
myself
myself
I was
an
talking.
expert.
Hold
I was like, she walked away and left us on nothing. We just gonna read the video.
My bad. Hold on. 37 mark. Oh, I hate when it does that. I have to do this. Let me go back. 37. Boop, 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 boop. Right there.
Make sure that there's nothing left for it to be exploited upon.
So given that, What is your take on certifications then? We've talked about, hey, you should get a library card, but there's these things called certifications too. Another holy war to unleash.
So the first answer really you should be focusing on is what's the field you're going into? So if specifically your claim to fame is the DevSecops path, I would say at the very least, have certs that prove your development background, your security background, and your ops background. So good ones towards this are your Network Plus, your Security Plus, and your Linux Plus. So your CompTIA. I call this kind of the Holy Trinity. These three, they tend to be your basic starter pack, easy to knock out certs to get there. Then from your cloud aspect, Amazon continues to be one of the biggest claims to fame from the cloud providers aspect. So getting an Amazon cert is certainly valuable. So if you're in the developer world specifically, I'd recommend the DevOps certs. If you're in the solutions architect, aka operations world, getting your solutions architect. And finally, if you're in your security, getting your security certs. SANS. I love SANS. I've been interacting with the SANS organization since the year 2000. I've had the privilege to be able to attend SANS courses and interact with them as TAs and instructors, and I've led Birds of Feather sessions, so on and so forth. Throughout.
So I'm gonna pause that now. You heard him. You already know what I said about the SANS cert. 12,000 a week for the teaching, and your TAs, I think, make anywhere about 7,500 a week. Teachers' assistants to the instructors. So he's done both. So again, he's pumping them SANS. I'm telling you, go get the SANS. People like SANS. People like the respect of them. Blah, 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 blah. Go on from there. All right, let's go.
That I've gotten to take a lot of their classes and a lot of their certification programs. The ones I would recommend at a very least, the lowest level, would be your GSEC or your GPEN or your GNFA or any of really the GACs. Just get at least one if you're going to be a cybersecurity focused person. If you're going to be a operations person, it also doesn't hurt to get certified in things like Kubernetes. So Google actually has a Kubernetes cert you can go after. And also Azure has Azure Ops as a certification you can get. The point is this: you want to have the idea to prove to whoever's talking to you, you have the experience of what you're being questioned on. So certs help prove experience. Certs do not prove knowledge. Your knowledge is going to come from either your degree or your experience. All certs prove is that you have played with that environment and you have a clue about what it's doing. But just because you have a clue does not mean you're an expert in it. Even if you're getting something that's calling you an expert, I'm a solutions architect pro, but would I call myself equivalent to the guy that wrote the service at Amazon to begin with? No. Would that guy call himself an expert? I've actually interviewed for Amazon, and I can tell you they don't either. And they look to people outside their teams to see if anybody calls themselves an expert. It frustrates me to no end. I have 20 plus years of experience in the cybersecurity, IT, development, and operations fields. I don't call myself an expert. I've been educated by literally the best in the industry. They don't call themselves an expert. But these Gen Z millennials go out there and take a 2-week course and then get a cert, and then they call themselves cybersecurity expert. And I'm like, ugh. And what's worse is,
he got y'all. He said, y'all call yourself experts. He got y'all. Am I frozen? Because D, you look frozen. Is D frozen? D, you look frozen. You look like you're not moving. Can y'all hear me and see me? Am I the only one here? Drop a 1 in the chat. Because D, you're frozen, and I'm not sure why you're frozen. And now D's gone. And D's gone altogether. I don't know. Am I here by myself? Okay, we got some ones. Yeah, D. I don't know what happened to D. She was just sitting up there like frozen. I'm like, D ain't got no facial expression. Just
Did you just restart computer? Oh goodness. Oh God. I was like,
I'm like, am I frozen? Because I was sitting there, I'm like, I see me moving. I see me. Let me.
and I'm over here looking at the other screen like
I'm
I
like,
am
let me
off.
see
I'm
me
like,
moving.
did my screen just go black? What happened?
I'm like, D, you there?
I was here. I was here.
I am cracking up. They say he said millennials and Gen Z talking about they got a cert for 2 weeks and now they are expert.
Oh my God. And they need $20,000 starting bonus, everything. Like, can you explain that? Can you put that into action? I'm confused. I don't
3 minutes away, D. 3 minutes away. All right. So let's get back to it.
Organizations hire them because of it. And these people are put in real life situations. Like, okay, now guard the bank. And I'm like, oh boy. Does this person have the actual experience and the capability to understand the charge they've been given? And the answer is, unfortunately, more than enough. No, a big 000. Now, are all certificates that way? No. So, for instance, I did not believe in the CISSP before. I believe in it now, and I'm going to explain why. So when the CISSP first came out, there were a ton of brain dumps out there that I know it was cheating, but a lot of people didn't care. And they bought these brain dumps, and then they just aced the CISSP, and then they got to call themselves cybersecurity experts and leaders. It frustrated me to no end. So because of that, I never put any value in the CISSP. But over the years, CISSP program has also grown. So now they require mentorship. Now they actually have a whole board that evaluates their questions and they keep them up to date. And they actually apply some pretty good security practices behind their questions where you're not going to be asked the same question that was asked previous years. The CISSP does have some requirements. You have to have some annual experience requirements in place. There are some educational requirements in place. So you really have to be at least this tall to play for them to even consider you for it. So with these in place, they've actually begun now churning out what I would call more successful CISSP holders. So to me, for that reason, the CISSP is true and dear to my heart. Start at the basic. Getting your certs helps you establish that basic that we're talking about. Which certs? Those that prove your passion. So what I usually tell people is get at least the most entry-level basic cert you can get from each cloud provider. So with Amazon, get the Solutions Architect Associate. With GCP, get the Google Cloud Practitioner. With Azure, get the, I think they call it the Cloud Practitioner.
That's what I've been saying. Get all 3 clouds. Stop looking at one cloud. Get all 3. Level set. Because now, if I got all 3 clouds, somebody called me and they say, hey, we need somebody with Azure and GCP. No problem. I got you. Hey, we need somebody with AWS and GCP and Azure. No problem. Get the baseline of each one of them so you can pick where you want to go, where you feel like you want to work. One week you may want to work something else or go somewhere else. Some people truly choose to focus on AWS. I get it. Big, large market share. But not everybody is in AWS only. Not everybody is in Azure only. Not everybody is in all 3 of those. Some of them are in Oracle Cloud because their databases are there. So again, pick and choose where you can make yourself a Swiss Army knife. Make your skill sets be Swiss Army. You like, okay, it's like Spider-Man. Where the hell is right? You can do all of that, right? You can just I can go anywhere I want to go, right? That's what you want to be. You and as you get morph into the actual positions more, you'll start to hone in and become specialists in certain things. Like, oh, I'm really good at specialists on security of containers. I'm really good at being a specialist for X, Y, and Z. So you'll hone in on those things over time. All right, let's get back to it. We're almost done.
recall correctly. The Azure, again, take a look at my profile. You'll see that I'm certified in all of them. But the point I'm trying to make is get that basic cert. For starters, it's very easy. It's very cheap. But the added advantage is it shows to the world how to play in that particular cloud environment. It doesn't necessarily say you're an expert in it, but it does at least show to the world that you're capable of interacting in that world when and if the need arises. And so you combine your cloud knowledge along with these tooling that I've told you, then it's just a matter of time. Unfortunately, you cannot beat good old-fashioned keyboarding out there. You have to put in some time. So come up with some fun challenges. I loved Google's Summer of Code challenges that they had. The idea was, hey, you're free during the summer. Why waste that time just partying? Instead, focus on helping humanity to make it better. And in turn, depending on your performance, we'll offer you a job. The thing is, it allowed the participants to build and establish both an experience with working in a Google-like environment, but also it helped them gain some really valuable experience. And that's what I'm really trying to tell today's world is, guys, there is no such thing as free knowledge. Unfortunately, until we invent the matrix plug where I can go, and now I know Kung Fu. Until that day comes, all we can really do is continuing to type in and putting in and unlocking our hours to be able to generate and build systems and services for people to enjoy.
You've worked with a lot of different programs like US Cyber Patriot, the US Cyber Challenge.
All right, so that's on that one, right? So back over here, the book Safe for DevOps Practitioners. This came out in December 2022. You can go look it up. Let me start here. And then let's go down to the table of contents on this book. Oh, come on. DevOps. Okay, here we go. All right, so introducing Safe for DevOps. Let me blow it up some more there. All right, security and compliance, competition, meeting challenges, DevOps people and process, DevOps tools, scaling safe, looking at CALM or CALMR, CALMR. All right, I'm gonna click on that so you know what that means right here. So what is CALMR? CALMR, I probably passed it. Let me go back up. I passed it. Yeah, I did. I don't know why it's not showing me now. Hold on. It was just, I just clicked on it. Oh, here we go. Let's see. All right. And this is from Scaled Agile right here. All right, so CALM-R is right here. Culture, a shared responsibility. Recovery reduces risk and preserves value. Measurement, a flow quality of value. Learn, accelerates delivery and automation. A continuous delivery pipeline. So CALM-R. I just started backwards. CALM-R, right? That would be people ask you that on an interview, like, what does safe mean to you? What does safe agile mean to you? What is the advantages? What is the disadvantages when we're looking at that? Let me see, where else was I at? All right. Yeah, right here. Next one, the CKS exam. Certified Kubernetes security specialist. You can find more about this on CNCF's website. This right here is a guide from Red Hat on what the exam covers. 2 hours. You need a 67% to pass. Contains 15 to 20% performance-based tasks. Kubernetes. This is 1.119. I think they're past 119. Pretty sure they are. Offers a free retake, but that may be the stable version for the exam. Includes a 2 year certification. Includes 12-month eligibility exam. Exam eligibility requires a valid CKA certificate. So you got to take the CKA from the Linux Foundation, like I said, and then go from there. And they got a breakdown of what's on the exam, how to study, and so forth. The next one up is DevSec Ops on Kubernetes. So let me go up here. Continuous security for cloud native applications, secure workload, secure infrastructure, secure supply chain. And then they have a breakdown in here of software development life cycles, architectural designs, DevOps and DevSecOps, security and requirements, managing threats, and then wrapping it up. It's only 57 pages on this. It's a PDF I got from Red Hat. Again, I talked about containerization earlier, value stream mapping. I'm hold off on this because we'll talk about this next week as part of our series, and I'll hold off on the DevSecOps interview questions. I'm going to dive deep into those questions, and SRE, I just want to make mention of those. And then here, the book, Modern Architecture Using DevSecOps and Cloud Native Enterprises. I'll go through this book at a high level as well too, and I have a ton of other stuff to go through. So next week we'll continue this series on DevSecOps, and we'll talk about AI and blockchain and edge computing in DevSecOps and data centers. What are we seeing in data centers? I have a full-blown report that I've downloaded from Gartner that contains nothing but the series of where data centers are, where they're going, what does it take to run a data center, what are they looking for in skill sets for data centers and so forth, and how these things play out, in particularly when we're talking about edge computing and so forth, right? That's it for today. I think I gave you all a lot today. You're on mute, D. Oh, okay, yeah. So again, what'd you say?
I didn't say anything.
Okay, you said engineering cannabis. You said I got a cert in data a week through a course, and I need two. Yeah. And why is Docker less adaptable than Kubernetes? Well, Docker, you can run Docker containers on Kubernetes, but they're root container, not rootless containers. So they didn't keep up with Docker. Docker didn't keep up with creating with their code and so forth. And so the project kind of died. And so people were like, oh, we're going to CRI-O. And so CRI-O is the baseline for Kubernetes. That's what you'll find as the actual runtime inside of Kubernetes. But people still do use Docker. They still do use Docker, creating a Docker file or a container file, and then building that image out inside of a pipeline and so forth. Or they'll use Packer to build that out. Packer comes from Hashi. So between Docker files, container files, and hash and Packer is what you'll see inside of a CI/CD pipeline to build. Use that code to build, right? And Alfred said this is a rerun for D. Though you on mute, thought you was gonna rerun and be frozen. All right. I hope this has been informative for you. I hope you get a chance to not be on the sidelines, be in the game. Again, one skill away from 200K, one skill away from 300K, one skill away from 400K. Make that your motto. Be there. Be in the game. Yeah, be in the game. I got a whole lot more to come to bring to you. As you can see, wait till we start talking about the security tomorrow and security with AI. How to use Chat GPT to secure your infrastructure, those type of topics. How do you use Chat GPT in your everyday? Even the hack that Chat GPT had, looking at that, the hack that has happened, a lot of people have been talking about it. Well, it hadn't hit mainstream yet, but we'll talk about it.
Because ChatGPT hadn't been ChatGPT in these days. I've been putting this stuff, and they were like, well, we're AI. And I'm like, ChatGPT, what did they do to you?
They'll put in controls.
I was like, ChatGPT, they want me to pay them for more information. I was like, oh, dirty bastards.
Let me go here. What's it called? What's it called? It's not hacker rank. It's hacker something else. Hold on. Well, we can do this one too. Let me. Um, I'll talk more about this tomorrow. Hold on. So HackerOne. When we start talking about HackerOne bounties, I want to start talking about bounties and so forth. Because this is how you get paid on the side, right? How you get paid on the side. Hacker bounty payout, right? So in 2021, hacker powered security report found that the median price for critical bugs across the board was $3,000. $1,000 for high severities, 500 for medium, 150 for lows. But you can see here $1 million bug bounties, the rise of record breaking payouts. This is how some people fund their side gigs. They just go and do these bug bounties, and they get paid out for these bug bounties, right? And every code has, every website and stuff has a bounty program and stuff. Here's one. Google paid 12 million in bug bounties as well too. Bug bounty, the payouts. How do you get involved and what does that look like? Look at this one. MU5 says it facilitated 66 million in bug bounties. 66 million in bug bounties. Shopify bug bounty program raises its maximum payout, right? Again, a lot of people compete in these payouts. I often see Indians are on these bug bounty and getting together and doing payouts. And so now you're starting to start seeing more and more of, what does it mean to secure your code, secure your API? How do you hack your own self? Like, are you sure that at least you got the basics covered? You can't cover an OS flaw, but you can cover the basics that OS has had flaws in from, pulling the latest and greatest security updates and so forth and so on. That's why they call it Patch Tuesday and so forth. All right, that's all I had, D. I'm done.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
I don't believe you.
I'm done. I'm done. All right, then. I'm done. Y'all be safe.
See you tomorrow.
Yeah, see you tomorrow. Remember, don't be on the sideline and better yet, don't set yourself up to be at the funeral at the cemetery watching on. Goodbye.